G'day everyone, it's Curtis here and welcome to an on the back wheel video. Today I'm reviewing the Triumph Rocket 3 GT. Let's find out whether or not it's a good bike and if I'd buy one. Let's start out with the design and look of the bike. I have to say, this is a cool looking bike. I mean, look at it. It's kind of this retro modern roadster thing that looks really tough. I mean, it just looks fast. Look at it. Coming around to the front, it just looks like a weapon. We've got the twin headlights, LED, a huge front tire, 150 section front tire. That is bigger than a lot of motorcycles' rear tire. It is absolutely ridiculous. We have upside down adjustable forks, massive Brembo Stylema brakes that are absolutely fantastic, a small little windshield in the front that does pretty well nothing, adjustable clutch, adjustable brake, bar end mirrors. Come around to here, we have an LCD dash, which is a mix between retro and modern. They've done a good job. There's two settings you can flip between, so you can have it looking modern. And there's another one that looks old school that changes everything to an analog style. We have beautiful switchgear. It is all backlit. We have heated grips, cruise control, hydraulic clutch. The paintwork looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, look at the color of that. I know it's a miserable day, but it still looks great, especially this kind of gunmetal grey, then your standard grey and the pinstripes too. The build quality looks absolutely fantastic. Coming around, the engine is definitely the highlight of this motorcycle. I mean, look at it. Look at this absolute monstrosity it has. It is a beast. Coming back, shaft drive. On the back, we have a rear hugger. I really like them for this style of motorcycle. I think it looks fantastic. I know other people don't like them. I think it looks great. Coming around the back, we've got a little backrest for the pillion, which is where this varies from the standard Rocket. An awesome looking single-sided swing arm, and look at this, alloys. Awesome. Coming around, here's our exhaust, which comes right out the side, and the exhaust pipes too here. It is a trick looking motorcycle. Of all the bikes I've ridden recently, this has by far gathered the most attention. People at work are coming up to me saying like, man, look at that bike. Is that yours? That thing is badass. And then people on the street, it attracts rev heads like nothing else has. You're riding through traffic and people are there going like, oh, look at that, rev it up, rev it up. And of course I oblige. I mean, look at it, why wouldn't I? It is a cool looking motorcycle. No one's going to say it's beautiful. I don't think it's a beautiful bike. It is a tough looking bike that looks trick, and it definitely stands out from the crowd. What do you think of the design and looks of the Triumph? Do you think it's a cool looking motorcycle? Do you think it's ugly? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, let's just jump right in and talk about the engine on this weapon. 2.5 litre, 3-cylinder, which is 2,500 cc's. It has it right here for everyone to see. It is an absolute weapon. Roughly 160 horsepower and 225 newton meters of torque. Yes, you heard that right, 225 newton meters of torque. This bike is flipping quick. It has so much punch in mid-range. Oh, it is just effortlessly fast. It goes very hard. So I'm going to do my usual 0 to 100 runs. But as you can see, it is very wet and rainy, and it is also cold. But we're going to give it a crack anyway. I know this is not going to get any traction whatsoever because this thing is an absolute monster. But let's just hit it and quit it. I'm on a very slight downhill, so maybe that will help with times, a bit more of an accurate reflection. But in dry weather, this thing hooks up and hammers. We should be able to get it all in one gear. 0 to 100 in one gear. Let's do it. Fires it down. No, no, less revs, everyone. Hey, that wasn't too bad still. Wasn't too bad still. This is a really good test as well. Even though it is wet and rainy, it's a great test for the traction control. The mechanical grip too. This is very flat actually right here. All right, let's do it. Oh, this thing is a beast. All right, one more for good measure. That should give us a good indication and just show you the actual pace of this machine. Like, it is a monster. So I'm not full hitting the launch because it's so wet. You'll see that first one I did full hit it and it just slid and died. It is a quick bike. There is no doubt about it. This is a very quick motorcycle. The engine is an absolute blast to use. I will say there is a bit of shudder in first gear when you're taking off very frequently. It's pretty annoying. I haven't been able to figure out how to get rid of that. You know, whether you go with high revs or low revs, I can't really see no rhyme or reason to it. It just does it. But besides that, very smooth engine to clutch action is great. When you get into the higher revs, it can get quite vibey through your hands and a little bit through the feet. That's in like the really high revs, you know, as high as this thing revs. It doesn't rev very high, but noticeable, definitely noticeable once the revs get high. But besides that, if you're not caning the arse out of it, it's a very smooth bike and it just lopes along effortlessly. Fuel economy, not great at all. In fact, it's pretty well terrible. I've been averaging about 7.5 litres per 100. Goes up to about 8 if you're cruising down to about 7, but my average over about 700 kilometres has been 7.5 litres per 100. I think on one of my tanks I got about 230 kilometres out of the tank, so it really limits your touring range as well. So we have riding modes. We got sport, road, rain and rider. I've been leaving this mostly in sport, even these conditions here, unless I want to cruise on the highway, I will put it on to road. The riding modes work fantastic. I really like all the riding modes and how the traction control also works. I will say, however, it can get a little bit jerky every now and again at really slow speeds. You got to watch it a little bit. Overall, the fueling is perfect. You know, for normal riding, it is absolutely perfect, but if you're doing really slow first gear stuff, yeah, it's a bit every now and again, on-offy. Not too bad. Sport is a little bit worse. Comfort will still do it. It's not bad, but I'm bringing it up, so I have definitely noticed it. The transmission feels absolutely amazing. Shifts are fantastic on it. It is a joy to use. The clutch is good as well. I will say this though, why doesn't it have a quick shifter? Quick shifters are amazing. You know, and you're paying, what is it, like $36,000? Kind of expect it to have a quick shifter up and down. Now, this is not sports bike quick up top. It's certainly not that kind of engine. Don't get me wrong, it is extremely fast bike. It's got 160 horsepower, something like that. It's ridiculous, but it's more about that immediate shove and whack it just has. So my standard bike is a KTM 1290 Super Duke, an absolute beast, one of the gruntiest bikes you can buy. I rode my Super Duke yesterday after riding this. It's the first time I've ridden my KTM and I was like, oh gee, this just doesn't have much grunt and pull, does it? So that tells you how much grunt, bottom end and mid-range pull this thing has when it makes a KTM Super Duke feel slow down the bottom. Wheel spin, wheel spin, wheel spin, wheel spin, wheel spin, wheel spin. Fishtail, fishtail, fishtail. Let's talk about the suspension and handling. We'll say this bike handles way better than I thought it would. For such a big bike, the Rocket 3 is very fun to ride, and this style of riding where it's kind of sweeping, not too slow corners, you can ride it a lot quicker in the dry. Obviously it's pouring rain, which doesn't help, but it's a lot of fun. When it gets slow, not so much. I mean, it's 2.5 litres and that engine inertia really takes over a bit. It is a big machine and it weighs a bit, you know, and that's slow, tight stuff. However, once you're up and going and then through the flowy stuff, it's actually a really capable, fun bike, and you wouldn't have a problem keeping up with your fast mates on their super nakeds or something like that. It's, yeah, surprising and quite easy to throw around. Like, the weight is so low, you can change direction quite easily, and the bars are nice and wide too, which gives you that bit of easy leverage. One thing I have found myself doing with this is using the rear brake a bit more than I normally would, just on corner entry. It really helps settle the bike and hold a tighter line, being a bigger bike. It's just a slightly different riding style, because while yes, you can get heavy under the brakes and, you know, going kind of fast, wash off a lot of speed, I find that you do that a bit earlier on this, then trail brake a bit with the rear brake, and then it just helps you go through the corners a bit better. It's just a different riding style to your sports bikes and your naked bikes. I mean, this does have forward controls at the end of the day, and it's much more like a Harley or a Diavel than it is a sports bike. In traffic, it's a bit of a handful to lane split on and get through traffic. It just feels like a big cumbersome rig, because it is just a huge motorcycle, and that's not what it's designed for. It's a power cruiser. Slow maneuvers are not too bad at all. In my parking lot at work, it's very tight and twisty and goes up and down. You got to take it slow and just be careful. I have found that you just got to ride a bit differently on this. Like if you ride the rear brake a little bit on corner entry and trail brake, that really helps with settling the bike. It's not a nimble bike, but surprising for its size. The suspension, when I first got it, I was like, this feels absolutely woeful. It was jarring, didn't take bumps very well at all, and was a rough ride. I set it to the Triumph recommended settings, and it is so much better. It is way better. Since then, I've tweaked it just a little bit to how I like it, and it is very good. It is very good suspension. It is not perfect though. The rear, for me, when you hit sharp bumps and bigger bumps, it feels like it just blows through, and it's still a little bit jarring. The front, I'm very happy with. I have been able to bottom it out a couple of times, hitting some big potholes that have been around. I mean, there's been so many potholes with all this rain. If you hit one, you know about it on this bike. It's a big bike. When 300 kilos hits a big bump, a lot of things are going to struggle, and this does struggle. Overall though, very good suspension. It's smooth. It's actually, you can set it up to be quite stiff and sporty if you want, or back it right out and get that comfort as well. And it's got enough adjustability where if you put some gear in the back and a passenger, you just up the preload in the back and you're away, and we'll have no issues whatsoever. The brakes on this are one of the biggest surprises on the motorcycle for me. They feel absolutely amazing. For a big bike, man, this thing pulls up so quickly. It is very impressive. I was shocked. I was like, man, this stops like a sports bike. It is crazy how quick it pulls up. The rear brake is in a very nice position here. Put my foot up here so you can see. You can see it's just in a neutral position. I find it very easy to reach. In fact, the controls in general are in a very nice relaxed position. The front brake lever, as I mentioned, is adjustable. It's nice quality, it all feels great, and it's easy to adjust. You just lift this back and then twist the dial here. You have braided lines on the front, which is fantastic, though you should for the price. Overall, the brakes are fantastic. I very much rate the brakes. They just feel perfect. Let's talk about the comfort and seating position of the bike. Now, this is where things get a bit mixed for me, because this is a power cruiser. You know, you look at it, it's not quite a touring bike, it's not quite a performance bike, it's that in-between ground, which is a bit weird for me. The seating position, I feel like it's a little bit of a reach to the front bars. I've adjusted it, and if you put the bars down and try and get closer, then it feels a little bit low. You put them up too far, it's a bit of a reach forward again. So that's a bit odd for me, and I find that I have to like hunch forward just a little bit every now and again. Gets your back a little bit sore in the back. I got not the greatest back, but then you sit upright and it's a little bit of a reach. So it's just not perfect. Overall, it is a very comfortable motorcycle. Just that, I noticed it, so if you've got short arms or something, that could be an issue for you. The seat itself is very good. I love the shape of the seat. It's very well done. The passenger seat is fine. It could be a little bit bigger. You may struggle if you got a bigger person on the back. If you've got a wife or something with a little bum, you might be pretty good. this is a bit of a point. I noticed some people saying, oh, I don't like this with the rear hugger because it's going to flick mud and dirt up. I haven't found that to be an issue at all. So we're cruising along at 80 kilometers per hour, and the revs are roughly 2,400 RPM. Clicking in the fifth, just above 2,000, and it feels like the bike is just being completely effortless and cruising along. Let's see how this roll-on is. Just wheel spinning. Now we are on the highway doing 100 kilometers an hour, which is 60 miles per hour. Speed up to 70, that's about 70 miles per hour, 110 and 15. You know, some bikes with a screen you'll get bad buffeting. This, not bad buffeting, you're just getting full blast. I'm comfortable though. I could do this for a long time, and I'm in atrocious conditions. I've just moved undercover because the rain has gotten the better of me. It was absolutely pouring and we just couldn't hear anything in the mic, so now we are undercover. But speaking of cover, I want to cover some nitpicks I have with the Rocket 3. The first thing is filling up the bike, and this is something you wouldn't notice on a test ride or something like that. It's a bit of a pain because you undo this, very easy to do. Just undo that. It's quite a small spout, and no matter what angle I put it at, it fills up really slow. Another thing is this bike has hill hold. So what that means is if you're on a hill, it'll stop the bike from rolling back. Now, that is great. I love that kind of technology. The only problem is it nearly never works. I've read the manual to try and figure out what's going on. It's enabled and I've disabled it, and it'll work every now and again, just randomly. Like the other day, I pulled out of work, there's a bit of a hill with the traffic lights. Stopped, it turned on, I was like, oh, this is absolutely fantastic. Tried to do it again, couldn't get it to do it again. Then it randomly just did it on a flat on the way home another time. I was like, so a good technology to have, but very fiddly and doesn't really work most of the time. So I might as well not be there. The engine heat is quite significant on this, and another thing is, I'll try to get the angle right for you. So you're riding, your leg goes all the way in here. It goes in a bit tighter for me actually. It touches the exhaust here, so when you're wearing wet weather pants or something like that, you got to be wary because it may melt them. In heavy traffic, you do definitely notice the heat coming off the bike. It is a 2.5 litre beast, but it hasn't even been hot here recently. Like, this has been kind of the weather I've been riding in, and it has been very noticeable, the heat coming from the bike. The dash on the motorcycle is just a bit meh for me. It has two settings, a modern setting and this older kind of analog setting. They're both okay, nothing special. They're easy to use, it's just they're a bit meh. I'm absolutely nitpicking there, I know it. There's not a lot of things to nitpick on this bike. It's a very good bike, but $36,000, yeah, it's worth mentioning, especially when some cheap bikes have fantastic dashes. So I'll just show you how everything works on a dash here. Triumphs are all very similar now, but if you haven't seen one, I'll show you. The dash on this is very different. How you cycle through it all is the same as other Triumphs. So on the side here, we've got a home button, which takes you to your main menu, all your riding modes. So you can adjust all them. You've got a rider mode, rain, sport, and road. We go down, we've got bike setup, so you can change your hill hold. Indicators, they got auto cancelling, advanced, and manual. I just leave it in auto basic because I have a lot of problems with these indicators. I find they don't cancel. So I just leave it and do it manually. Traction control, which you can turn on or off. I just leave it on unless it's dry. Then when your bike needs to be serviced. We've got trip setup, so you can change how all that works, trip 1 and 2. Display setup, so we've got themes, how you want your contrast set up and everything. I just set the contrast to auto, gear shift indicator and rider's name and a couple of other things. So coming across to here, we have the engine mode button, lights on or off, very strange to see in a new motorcycle. Cruise control, which was very easy to use. And then we got the headlights here. The headlights are fantastic as well. How you control your dash is down here. You got your left and rights. So if you scroll left and right, it goes across and up and down as well. So this has heated grips, which are absolutely fantastic. I love heated grips now, I've been using them. It's got 3 settings, so you just hit that little button, it comes on the dash there. It's hard to see because the speedo's in the way, but it's like hot, medium, low, and off. Very easy to use, I like how they work. Okay, it's time to give my final thoughts on the Rocket 3 GT. Do I think it is a good bike? I think it is a very good bike. And that's quite a thing for me to say, because when I first got the bike and I first rode it, and you saw in my first ride impressions, I was like, oh man, I do not know what to think of this bike. In fact, I didn't really like it at all. And I was like, this is gonna be an easy review. I don't like this bike. I still don't think it's perfect, but it is a very good bike. The bigger question is, would I buy one? And that answer is no, I would not buy a Rocket 3 GT. Why? It's a very expensive bike. I know it's extremely unique, but for me, it's in a funny spot in the market. It's not a tourer, it's not a sports bike, it's this big absolute weapon. And that is the beauty of it. You know, it is unique. It's got this 2.5 litre punchy monstrosity of a motor in it. And I get that. That is the appeal of it. But for me and the price, it's a niche bike, and I wouldn't fork out 35,000 Australian dollars buying one of these. I would get a super naked, which is going to be just as fast or faster, something like a Tuono for 30 grand. Or I would get a touring bike at the other end of the spectrum. Who should buy a Triumph Rocket 3? Well, if you've got a bit of play money, get one. They're a really cool bike. They look fantastic. They are a blast to ride. Just be wary that, you know, they are that niche bike. But if you've got some play money, you've got multiple bikes, and looking at it thinking it is cool, it is a very good bike and you're going to have a blast on it. Just give it more of an opportunity than the initial ride, because it will grow on you. And that torque is addictive, and it will make your other bikes feel very pathetic down low. So would you buy a Triumph Rocket 3 GT? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button and keep it on the back where everyone catches.